Hey folks, you know I take my trail camera intel pretty seriously. It's a huge part of how I build my hunting strategy, and I'm always looking for gear that just flat out works. Stuff I can rely on. Backed by solid people and the best customer support in the business. That's exactly why I run Tacticam Reveal cell cameras. Whether you're just getting started or you're a full-blown data junkie like me, they've got a camera to fit your budget and your hunting style. My go-to currently is the Reveal 3.0 series with fully integrated GPS. These things are dead simple to set up. Less fiddling, more scouting and hunting. And they run on most major service providers and will automatically connect you to the strongest signal in your area. So no more hiking to the top of a ridge just to realize you've got the wrong service provider. Been there, not fun. Here's the kicker. You don't even need an SD card. That means fewer trips in, less pressure on your spots, and more real-time intel sent straight to your phone. And if you pair it with a Reveal solar panel or a lithium cartridge, you can keep those cameras running longer and spend more time doing what actually matters. Scouting new ground, dialing in a setup, or maybe, just maybe, finally cleaning the garage like you told your wife you would before the season started. Don't just take my word for it. Check out Tacticam Reveal at tacticam.com. Tacticam. Everything you need to take your hunting to the next level. Stay more comfortable, more concealed, and in the stand longer with Oscio gear. Premium camouflage apparel created for bow hunters by bow hunters. Oscio's revolutionary patented camo patterns and innovative features are designed to keep whitetail bow hunters totally invisible and dead quiet. Elevate your game with Oscio. Visit asiogear.com and take 20% off your purchase with code TRUTH20. Welcome to the Truth from a Stand Deer Hunting Podcast, brought to you by Tacticam Reveal Cellular Cameras. I'm your host, Clint Campbell, and you are listening to episode number 450. Today I'm joined by Jason Batson to talk about keeping things simple, and sometimes you gotta hunt stupid. So stay tuned. All right. What is up, everyone? Happy Wednesday to you. Hope you're doing well. Hope you are feeling fine. Hopefully you're finishing up the remaining bit of deer work that you have. Hopefully you're doing a little bit of glassing. I was actually able to slip out, I want to say it was probably like 2 weekends ago maybe, or last weekend. No, 2 weekends ago. I was able to slip out, do a little glassing. I've talked about this in the past. There's nothing really close to where I hunt locally that's adjacent to agriculture. Everything, if there is any ag nearby, it's usually a couple miles away, or whatever the case is. But what I have found is that some of those deer that I've glassed in some of those fields in the past have made their way into some areas that I hunt. There seems to be kind of one particular area, especially early season, where they like to hold up. And so did some driving, did some glassing, was really kind of a bust for the most part. But there was one area, it was kind of late, and I was like, I'll just drive by this one spot and see if there's any deer out. Really, the evening was kind of a bust. I didn't really have high hopes for much of anything, to be honest, and ended up slipping by this area, and sure enough, there was a handful of bucks out. One looked to be pretty good. I think I know that deer, not long term, but I have pictures of him. So I was kind of stoked on that, and so where he was at and where my camera, where I've caught him, is not, I don't think he would be in that general area whenever the season opens. But there's another area that I've had a deer in that same area that I glassed in previous seasons, and was able to kind of get on one of them in a particular kind of section, away from where I had traditionally run, any trail cameras or whatever the case is. And so my thinking was like, man, I need to get in there and get a camera in this one particular area, because I think this is where they're going to probably be. Or not, I shouldn't say probably be. If I'm going to have a chance to hunt that deer earlier in the season and not wait for, say middle toward end of October for a chance at that particular buck, if he still is around, it's going to be in this other area. And I didn't have a camera in there. And so I was just kind of waiting for the weather to not be so ridiculously hot and humid to go out and put a camera in this area. So I got the chance yesterday. It was kind of overcast. I think it was like mid 70s, rainy. So it wasn't like oppressively hot. So I was able to slip in there, The area is so freaking thick. I forgot how thick it is, to the point to where it's like I get in there and I start meandering through, this thick stuff, and it's really easy, at least for me, to get turned around in there. And I kind of had to stop a couple times and be like, where the hell am I at? Like, which direction do I need to go? Because I kind of got disoriented a little bit. But nonetheless, I got a camera up, and then sure enough, it's this area where there's like a real hard transition between, where the timber opens just a little bit, and then just like a wall of nastiness. And there's an edge there, and that's where I hung the camera. There are some decent deer tracks. Everything was so kind of muddied up and so soft, I couldn't really tell whether it was any good buck tracks or just deer tracks in general, obviously. But couldn't really tell if there was like a good buck track in there or not, just because the ground was so soft. A small deer could make a big track, in that soft of soil. So wasn't a whole lot to learn from that. But there was some decent food around there, some oaks, plenty of deer tracks in general, to where there's deer definitely in there kind of using that highway. And so to put a camera there. And I think I finished that up around 6:00 last night. And then by whatever time it was, I want to say like 9:30 or whatever, I already had deer kind of moving through. So at least we're pointed in the right direction. We'll see what happens, see if that gives me any new intel. Just kind of a flyer camera, and see what happens. Maybe we'll get lucky and get an early season opportunity off of that deer that I was able to glass. But with that, we're going to go ahead and jump into today's show. But before that, I just want to make mention of something really quick. I'm looking off to the side here because I want to make sure I got my notes right. But our buddies over at Osseo Gear are having a preseason sale that's going to kick off. It's going to start on July 25th, and it's going to run through August 3rd. And what it will be is a 25% discount on basically everything. I think the only things that aren't included are the Whitetail Pro Boot that they have now and the heavyweight merino base layers. Only two things that won't be included in that discount. Everything else is 25% off. You don't have to do anything special. There's not a code. You just go put stuff in your basket, or in your cart rather, hit checkout, and that 25% discount will be automatically applied. So that starts this Friday, I think, which is July 25th, and will run through August 3rd. So make sure you take advantage of that before the season gets kicked off. So with that, we're going to go ahead and just jump into today's show. Have my buddy Jason Batson on. Jason is a fellow that I met through a mutual friend of ours. He's from Missouri, and he's got, he's been hunting for a really long time. He's got, like, I think 30 years of like bow hunting under his belt. And he's just a guy that likes to keep things simple, and just is very much kind of like a meat and potatoes person. He's killed some hammer deer. He's killed a lot of deer in general. And I just really kind of appreciate his approach to things. Like, he doesn't try to complicate things. We talked a little bit about how, like, earlier in your hunting journey, a lot of times, like, you overcomplicate things. I think that's the thing with a lot of things in general. I think when you first get into things, you see people maybe who are really good at something, and you think that they might have this, this trick or something that they magic, if you will, that works for them, which is, why they're successful, or it's because they can do all these interesting things, or they have these really kind of complicated strategies, or whatever the case is. And it's usually rarely ever the case. Usually the case is those guys are just really, really good at fundamentals. And they're really, really consistent with executing those fundamentals. And Jason kind of falls into that category. He's had a ton of success, killed a lot of deer. It was a really cool conversation. I appreciate him coming on. And as always, thank you all for listening. All right, folks, welcome back to another episode of the Truth from the Stand Deer Hunting Podcast. And today I have on a gentleman by the name of Jason Batson. We are new friends. We are introduced by, I'm not going to mention Paul's last name. I don't know how much he wants anyone to know who he is, but a mutual friend of ours, Paul, introduced us, and he and I kind of talk a good bit on Instagram, DM, and texting and stuff like that, and trade stories and stuff. And he was like, man, he's like, I think I have a guy you should talk to. He's like, I think you'd really like him. And I was like, man, I'm always looking for interesting people. And he sent me your name, and you were gracious enough to come on the show. So I appreciate you coming on.
Oh, you're welcome.
How do you know Paul? Out of curiosity.
Well, it was mid-October, and it was actually my first hunting trip of the year. And it was a certain section of this land was going to close to the refuge the next day. And I went in and I was hunting, and I wanted a deer and killed a doe. And I was dragging a doe out, and mosquitoes. I had about 50 mosquitoes on me, in my face, my chest, my back. I had my shirt off. I was just sweating like crazy. And here comes a guy with these big binoculars, and he's stopping every little once in a while looking, and then he walked a little bit, and then he seen me and come walking up there and started talking to me. And I had a deer, and he started talking a lot, and I started talking a lot, and he followed me all the way back out to the truck, and I was about a mile and a half deep, and we met each other about a mile and a quarter in, and he just gave up on what he was doing just to talk to me. And that's how I met Paul.
Nice.
And we talked at the parking lot for 30 or 45 minutes, and then I said, well, I got to get something done with this deer. So I went and got it cut up and in a cooler. And then I made a what we call a circle on that place we hunt and drove the road and met Paul again. And he was parked beside the road looking at his map. He was trying to learn the place. So I stopped and talked to him. And we kind of became friends just from that. And what's crazy is he
Yeah,
had actually, I believe the year before, had got a picture of my best buck by doing what he was doing. He was walking like a service road back in this conservation land that you can't drive, and he was using his binoculars, just kind of scouting. And it was the day before season then, and he has a picture of this big 10-point buck about 20 yards off that service road, bedded in some weeds. Well, and behold, I killed that buck that year. And when we talked that day, he showed me that picture and said it was right down here. And I got on my phone and showed him the picture of the buck, and he's, it's the buck I get, and it's the buck. There's just no doubt. Kind of kind of a
that's
small world.
yeah, that's right, man. That's hilarious, dude. Like it's people sometimes will you know, uh, talk bad, if you will, or whatever the case is about locals, especially if you're an out of stater or whatever. But I've had more good encounters, with guys from locals. That's how I met a buddy of mine from Iowa. Was a similar way. He and I were hunting the same piece, um, and I came out to my truck, and I was getting in pretty early because I had a pretty good hike back and in the one night we both came out, and I happened to be at my truck, changing, and he was walking out, and it was just only two trucks in the parking lot, small parking spot, small parking area. And he introduced himself, and he's like, "Hey, you back in here hunting?" I said, "Yeah." He's like, "Man," he's like, "You must be getting here early, dude." He's like, "You're here before I am." He's like, and then he's like, "You're like a ghost." He's like, "I just see your truck everywhere." He's like, "Yeah, you've been hunting over here, you've been hunting over here," and I said, "Yeah, and then he said, "I'm on a real big deer, and I'm hunting back along this particular area, not far off of the private landmark or whatever. This is where he was kind of hunting." And the deer he was after I think he was like in the 180s or something like that. And he asked me where I was at, and I said, "Well," I was like, "I'm not anywhere close to you." I really don't start hunting until about a mile back in. I was like, and I've been as far back as two. He's like, "Oh, okay." He's like, "Yeah." He's like, we won't be messing each other up or anything then, And so, after that, we exchanged numbers. Yeah, because I was like, "If you need any help dragging something out, let me know. If I'm back in here, I'll come out. I'll come help you." And he said, "Same thing. Let me know if you need any help. I'll help you out." And we ran into each other at the Casey's, like getting gas, like a day later, and we just
Yeah.
started kind of talking, and he could tell I didn't want to step on his stuff, and he didn't want to step on mine, and so he just said, "Hey," he's like, "How long are you out here for?" And I was going to be out there for like 2 weeks because I met him very early in my trip, and he says, "Hey, well, I've had some really good bucks back in this one area." He's like, "Have you been back here yet?" Because he asked me what I was seeing. I was like, "I saw a couple decent ones." I was like, "But nothing crazy." And he's like, "Well, back in here," he's like, "I've had some really good bucks back in there." And he grew up in this area and knew the spot really well. And so I was like, "Yeah," I was like, "I walked through that and scouted." I was like, "I'm actually planning to head there tomorrow." And he's just said, "Hey, there's a piece of water that's back there." He's like, "Were you planning to head anywhere near that?" And I was like, "That was my plan." And I was like, "Because I just wanted to get to the water and kind of work my way from there." He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "I'd spend some time around that." He's like, "I haven't been back there in like 2 years." He's like, "I haven't hunted back there in like 2 years." He's like, "But every time I've hunted back there or had cameras back there," he's like, "always had really good deer." And that's where I ended up going. I ended up missing a really good deer the first day I got into that spot. And then like 2 days later, or no, it was the last day that my hunt, I ended up killing a good buck, like in that general area. And so we stay in contact to this day, like still
That's
talk.
cool.
Yeah. I'll be headed out next year back out to Iowa, not this season, but the following. And, I'm planning to go out and maybe do some scouting with him, and, and he'll share trail camera data with me, and I'll send him some cameras so he can put some extra ones out or whatever. Just, point being is that it's always interesting whenever you're, mucking around a piece of land, you never know who you're going to run into. And at least for me personally, my personal experience has been 9 times out of 10, it's been a good person.
Right. I mean, like-minded, obviously. I ran into a few people that I didn't, I guess, care for. Maybe I don't know, but most of the time, everybody I ran into were really pretty good people. And on one-on-one, I chit chat and talk all day. So I mean, we usually strike up a
Yeah, same.
conversation and just go at it. And I mean, I don't give
Yeah,
away my secrets or
yeah,
my honey holes or anything like
right.
that, but I sure don't try to discourage them
Yeah,
too much or anything like that either, you know?
right. That's right. Yeah, it's funny because that same trip I ran into another guy. It was actually from Kentucky. This fella George, retired fella, older fella. Still, I mean, it was kind of an inspiration to be honest, because I think he was in his. I want to say maybe he just turned 70 that year, um, and still out there by himself, trucking away on public land, completely solo. Doing his thing.
What do you
And
love?
yeah, and funny thing was, is he actually texted me. I still talk to him. He actually texted me probably. Well, I guess it's right around the time the points you had to pick up your points for Iowa and stuff. He texted me to see if I was going to go back out this year because we obviously were in the same point trajectory because we were there the same year. So he's like, I'm going back this year. He's like, are you coming out? And he invited me to stay with him because he had an old retired guy. He's got big old trailer, like big old RV. He's like, you can stay in some
Uh,
luxury if you want. You can stay with me.
yeah, can't
Super
beat
good
that, I
guy.
guess.
That's right. That's right. But so man, I want to get to know you a little bit, and what way I like to kind of break the ice, and kind of let everyone get a little bit of lens into you. It's like just, let's start off with just where you're from and kind of what you do for a living, so people have a little bit of a sense of your background.
Okay. I was born in Southwest Missouri and pretty well lived here my entire life. Maybe lived in town 4 or 5 years of my life, and luckily lived in the country the whole time. So I'm kind of backwoods kid. I'd get off the school bus and disappear into the timber till dang near dark, every night. The days I wasn't doing side jobs or something after I got a little older, as a kid trying to make money, I was in the woods all day. We was caving and shooting squirrels and BB guns, and I was just all over the place. And I mean, all the neighbors didn't care what we done, and literally had 2 or 3 thousand acres of land we could roam around, on down here. And just kind of got into hunting when I was 13, or deer hunting, and by my dad, and I killed a few deer with rifle, and I never really got into bow hunting. I just thought it was such an impossibility. I didn't want to try it. I mean, it was just like, golly, I have a hard enough time getting one with a gun, Why do I want to go through the bow? And I had a bow, an old bear whitetail too, aluminum arrows, and shooting in the yard one day, a spike buck come walking right down off the hill by the house and walked across the yard, and I was like, golly, that'd be so awesome to kill one of them with a bow. And still didn't bow hunt for probably 7 or 8 more years. I think I was 18 or 19 before I went to timber with a bow, and that was, I don't know, mid 90s or so. But my bow hunting career took off then, and I haven't gun hunted since. I mean, pretty much I've bow hunted solely since the mid 90s. For a living, as far as work, I've done quite a bit of construction work. Our own house, and built our own house, and pretty much every structure on our property and all that. And um, I actually have worked in extrusion plants, aluminum foundries, and I work at a commercial window manufacturer now. And I was there probably 15 years on the floor, and then bid on an office job and got an office job in the engineering department, they call it, and basically look at blueprints and the customer sends in for their project, and we figure out material needs and basically convert that into a factory order where the shop can produce a product off
Mhm.
of what, we write for them to produce.
Right.
And I work in the office, and I've been there 26 years. And
Nice.
honestly, I'm pretty fortunate. It's a decent job. I get a lot of vacation. I figured it up. I don't work Friday, Saturday, Sunday, so I've got 3 days there, 7 or 8 paid holidays, and I have, counting sick and floating holidays and vacation, I have almost 300 hours a year off. So
Nice.
I figured that up,
Yeah.
and I have roughly 200 days a year off, counting my 3 day weekends and holidays.
Nice.
So
You
I
can't
can
beat
hunt
that,
a
man.
lot.
Yeah.
No,
I was
that's
gonna ask you as you were kind of going. I was like, how conducive is it to hunting? Because I always I've got a couple buddies that are in healthcare. They're emergency room nurses and things like that, work in the ER and stuff. And, a couple buddies who are cops and stuff like that as well. And it's one of those things where they have I guess it's a swing schedule. I think that's what it's called, right? Where it's like they might be 3 days on and they might work 3 12s or something like that. And then they're off for 4 days or whatever. And when they time up their vacation and stuff like that with it,
Oh yeah,
I always kind of joke with them. I'm always like, dude, do you work at all through October and November? I think like you work 2 days, because they time
yeah.
everything up where it's like they got their days off normally, right? And then they use some vacation days kind of in between and stuff like that. And it seems pretty good, but I don't know that I'm not compassionate enough to do their job. They've got to,
No,
those
those
fellows have a
jobs.
heart of gold. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. You can combine stuff and plan it out to where you can use 3 days of vacation and get a week and a half off sometimes if you have the swing shift type jobs like that.
Yeah,
And I
that's
did
right.
that for a while at one of my previous employers about 30 years ago. Every 3 weeks I got 5 days off, so I could just burn 2 days vacation, get 5 days off, 2 days, and then I would get the next 2 days. So I could get 9 days off for 2 days
For two
vacation.
days,
And
right. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
it was nice.
Man, so I'm curious, when you picked up the bow, and it kind of bit you, what was the thing that kind of sold you, right? Because, you're right, especially when you're a youngster, right, or younger, picking up a bow
Um,
seems far fetched and seems like it's hard to do, which it is,
yeah,
right? But, what was it for you that made you just want to kind of stay with the bow?
challenge. I mean, it was hard with a gun, I guess, but I mean, I could shoot coyotes I got a 220 Swift. I can hit coyotes at 400, 450 yards, pretty consistently. And even when I was younger, and then I bought a 7 mag to deer hunt with. Well, I mean, shoot, especially if you're hunting in the timber, if you see it with a gun, 99.9% of the time, you're going to kill it.
Hmm.
And then in a field, yeah, most of the time, if you get a decent shot at it. And then with a bow, it was just so much of a challenge. And I wanted one so bad. Like I said, I just had that bear whitetail too. And then I bought an old PSE Fireflight, was the first bow I hunted with. And hunted with it for 4 years. Had a couple of buddies that actually got me into finally going out into the woods and actually hunting a deer. And they took me to a place I'd never been. And I said, well, what do I do? I was like, I'm used to going out and sitting on the ground with a gun or maybe having a stand. And, well, this little ridge, we'll park on this lot. And he said, this little ridge will drop off in this big river bottom. He said, those bucks are on the edge of that ridge or down in the bottom. He said, I just go a little ways off that ridge and just kind of get on the ground by a big tree. I was like, okay. So I went in there and I got on the ground and I wasn't there 10 minutes. And I look over my shoulder and there's about 125, 130 inch 8 point at like 30 yards. It's better than any buck I've ever seen down home. We were up in more central Missouri. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I couldn't do anything. I didn't set myself up right on the ground where I could turn or anything. And that buck stood there looking around for a second. And then I don't know, he didn't win me because the wind was perfect. And I don't think he seen me. He just somehow, they have that sixth sense, I guess, where they didn't just sense there's danger. And he
Hmm.
just turned and right back the way he went. And that right there was what really, really hooked me. And I mean, we hunted the rest of that day, and I think we stayed the night, if I remember right. Just slept in the truck in the actual Jeep thing we had, me and a couple of buddies, and we just stayed in it, and then hunted the rest of that next day and come home. And I wanted to go right back up, so we went back up, and this was in December. It was late season before I'd even
Hmm.
started, and of course that buck was in honeysuckle, big honeysuckle thicket there, and they up at this particular place they browse on it a lot late season. And then I never got a deer killed that year. The next year I never got a deer killed. And the next year I never got a deer killed with a bow. And the opening morning of my fourth season, I finally killed a deer with a bow, a doe. It was just, I mean, after that, it was just, I didn't even care to think about a gun. I just
Right.
didn't want to waste my time with it.
Isn't it something how, you know, most things in life in general, and maybe even more so now with people's attention spans and stuff like that, but that even though you weren't having quote unquote success, right? Like you weren't filling tags,
Right.
right? Because that's how a lot of people will measure, right?
Yep.
Success, right?
Yes.
Even though you had multiple seasons where you weren't getting a deer killed, right? And I think this is great for people to hear. Anyone who's listening to this that's like newer in their
Oh yeah.
newer into hunting, right? It's like, you know, it's that, like, to me, that just says that there's something a little bit more there than just filling the tag,
Oh,
right?
there is. Right.
So what was it for you that kind of kept you coming back? Because a lot of people would get discouraged, especially after 3 years, you know.
Yeah. I'm a determined person. Apparently
I'm
I
stubborn too. Yeah.
apparently I sucked, but I didn't. I mean, it is rough starting out. There's a lot to learn, and it's just like I would get so excited. I mean, I had some shots. I didn't hit anything, I don't think, bad through the entire time. It's just I would get so excited, I would forget every step after drawing. I
Mm-hmm.
would draw my bow, and it's like I would shoot, and I would miss by about 4 foot, and it's like, did you even anchor? You know, did I aim? It was just terrible, man. And I didn't have a nice stand. I didn't have anything like that. I mean, I'd go out and try to hunt on the ground or find a tree I could climb up in and get on a big limb or something. And then finally I ended up getting a climber stand, and it ended up going from there, you know, the success. I mean, I finally killed my first one out of my climbing stand, and I think it was, which I'd used it the entire season before, if I remember right. I mean, we're talking
Well, yeah,
30
years
years ago
ago.
now.
Yeah,
Hard to
yeah,
exactly remember, but I know it was my fourth season when I finally killed a deer opening morning.
right. The so you were talking about your buddies kind of took you out, right? That first hunt, if you will, with a bow, right? So I'm curious, what was, who were your mentors, I guess, as you were kind of like getting into bow hunting, right? Because I'll just give you an example. For me, I started bow, like I grew up hunting. Started, whenever I was a kid. I grew up in the country, so I was always in the woods too. Very similar, it was just if I wasn't inside, I was in the woods doing something. That was just kind of how I grew up on a farm, for the most part. You know, be with my dad in the woods. Started going turkey hunting with him and stuff like that whenever I was just probably like 5, 6 years old, tagging along, probably scaring everything off for him for the most part. It's probably what I was really good
Uh-huh.
at.
Oh yeah.
And then of course, like whenever I turned 12, because that was the legal age in PA, that was, it was just like I started hunting. Then my dad and my uncles were really kind of my mentors, but they weren't really big bow hunters necessarily. My dad, I've told this story before, but he would like to take a recurve out and do some sneaking if it was wet or windy out in October, and that was about it. Otherwise, we gun hunted for the most part. So I really didn't get exposed to bow hunting until I was probably like 30, right? And that was really when I kind of started bow hunting was then. I'd done trips, like gone to Alaska and bear hunted and stuff like that in between, but none of it was ever with a bow. And it was a fellow who was an old timer. It was actually my father-in-law's friend, that got me interested in it. And then just kind of like it took off. Like I was just ate up with it once it started. And then, so for me, my mentors were kind of different, right? Because like my dad kind of started me
Right.
hunting, but as far as like my bow hunting mentors, it was really kind of like my buddy, old timer Tate. And then it became guys that like I, you know, knew of, because we didn't have hunting TV growing up. Like I didn't have a lot of TV. We had an antenna
Right.
you had to turn, so we got 3 channels growing up. So I
Yep.
didn't have
Same.
like, yeah, I didn't have like the outdoor whatever. I didn't really ever read magazines because there wasn't like a magazine place like in my hometown. There was one stoplight
Right.
in the town. And so hunting like information just was non-existent to me until like I was like 30, and I was like, all right, I want to figure out how to do this. And that's when I found like the Hunting Beast forum and stuff like that, and started. I was like, oh man, these are guys that are like doing all this stuff that I want to do. Let me start reading some of these forums and stuff like that. And then I actually started the podcast because I was like, I wonder if I can get any of those guys to talk to me. And that was really
Uh-huh.
how this all started. It was for me to learn, kind
That's
of,
cool.
to learn more how to do it. Because I'd been doing it for a couple years prior, and I was like, man, I want to get better at this. And so that's kind of how the show started. So my mentors were really, for the most part, were guys that at the time I didn't know, and are guys that I got to meet through the podcast, right? Were guys that were mentors of mine. But I'm curious for you, who were your mentors?
Oh well, I mean, my entire family, all the males, pretty well have hunted. So I'd have to say my grandpa first, and my dad, which that was mainly coon hunting, coyote
Mm-hmm.
hunting with hounds, squirrel hunting, that kind of stuff. And then, like I said, about the time I was 13, started deer hunting with my dad. And I mean, he taught me the basics, scrapes, rubs,
Mm-hmm.
trails, and just kind of some thermal stuff and that type of thing. Um, but then me and him actually kind of had a little falling out basically. So I didn't talk to my dad for a long time, and had a couple of buddies that their older brothers had taught them or got them into it. You know, they were the same
Mhm.
age as me, and um, they just kind of like, hey man, you ought to try this. You'd like it, and that's kind of what happened. And we went on that one trip, and they really, I can't say they taught me anything. They just kind of kicked me out into it and
Kicked you
got
in
me
the rear end
started.
and got you going. Yeah.
And honestly, a lot of it has been I've just learned trial and error. I mean, I didn't have, of course, you know, mid late '90s, you didn't have smartphones, you didn't have anything. I literally, if I'd go to a new conservation area, I'd get one of their paper maps, and I would carry a pencil in my pocket with a paper map, and I would mark where I parked, and then I would take off and I'd be like, oh, you know, it's shaded areas and different hatch marks and stuff on the map. I'd be like, there's a field up here. I'm going to go look at that. Walk through the timber. And if I found something good, I'd put a little X on the map or whatever, or draw a circle, you know, for a scrape or something like that. And I would just kind of lay it out, you know,
Hmm.
all. And then literally there was one place I learned, it was like 8,800 acres. And I mean, I've walked almost every square inch of that place. No telling how many times. Back when I was young, I still can walk a lot. It's just I would cover it and cover it. No telling how many of the maps I'd have. I wished I'd have kept them all. You know, it'd
Oh
be pretty
yeah.
cool to look back and see. Most of them got thrown in the trash or something over the
Hmm.
years. But that's kind of just how I learned. It's just honestly trial and error. And I've never watched many of the hunting shows or anything like that. I don't remember what it was called. It was one day a week. They had hunting shows on one of the channels we got, and it'd be two or three shows. They were old timey shows, mostly rifle hunting, you know, back
Hmm.
then. I kind of watched that. But then I got into watching a little bit of hunting shows early to mid 2000s. But then once it got to where it was all, seems like all marketing, and it was just nothing but food plots, marketing. And I just kind of got out of it. It just got to
Yeah.
be, for me, too unrealistic for, I
For what you
mean,
had, what you were doing. Yeah.
right. I'm a
Yeah.
public land guy. I don't have any private property I can hunt on. We have 28 acres here, and I can hunt on it. I mean, we have deer that come in the yard, but I want to watch those deer. I want to hunt them, you know.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I just don't know anybody anymore that has enough land, and I'm not a door knocker, and
Yeah.
I'll never pay to hunt. I just won't
Yeah.
do it. I'm stubborn in that aspect. But
Yeah. Well,
public
then, yeah,
land,
and you live in a good, like, and Missouri is a good state because I was actually I wanted
a
to
lot.
ask you, right? Because, I've hunted Missouri in the past, and I was gonna hunt it. What was it? 2 years ago, I killed a good deer in the plains. That was a little west of you, and it happened early in the hunt, and I was gonna slide back through and hunt this one spot in Missouri I really like because I had seen a really good deer while I was there. And then I hit one and lost it on the last day of the hunt. And I kind of wanted to come back and redeem myself. So I called my wife and say, hey, I killed this really good deer. It's like, I'm going to drive back home, but I'm going to stop in Missouri for 2 or 3 days. And I'd already killed a buck in Pennsylvania, killed one in the plains. And she was like, yeah, bud, freezer's full. You're coming home. So that was pretty much the
Yeah.
end of that. So I
Dang
didn't
it.
make it back.
Yeah.
But the places I've been have been more northern
Uh-huh.
or northern Missouri. And I'm just curious because I've never been like in the southwest part, so I don't really have any clue as to like what any of that habitat looks like. So like what's the terrain stuff like that kind of look like where you're at?
Well, where I live, I actually live to where it goes from kind of more flat open land into the big hills and hollers like northern Arkansas. I live in the far southwest, I'm probably 35 miles, 30 miles from Arkansas line. And I mean, around here, it's hardwood timber, cedar thickets. There's like virtually no crop fields. The ground's poor, rocky. And, 30, 40 years ago, if somebody killed a 110 to 120 inch buck, people were talking about it. And if somebody killed a 130-inch buck, everybody was talking about it. It was just a monster and it was just crazy, And but now I don't know the genetics, what it is. There's a lot better deer down here, but I still like to drive more towards the central part of the state when I
Mm-hmm.
do most of my hunting. And a
Okay.
lot of it is just always been more deer there. And I
Mm-hmm.
mean, there's the conservation lands. You got so many options. I play the wind hard. I mean, I've always done that. I kind of figured that out early. That man, they bust you if you don't play the wind, and it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't matter. I mean, I'm not trying to knock any scent products or any of that. I just don't. buy that stuff. I mean, I use a UV killer soap, and I do use a scent away soap for my laundry and my body. But then when I'm camping for 2 weeks, I used to wear Speed Stick Musk deodorant is what I wear.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I would
Same.
wear. I just literally I play the wind.
Yep.
Uh,
I try
but
not
up
to, my,
there,
my, my theory is like, I try to be as non-stinky as possible. Right.
right?
But
Yep.
when you're out on these hunts, it just doesn't matter much, you know,
Oh
like,
man, I forget the olfactory count or whatever it is of a deer's nose is just out of this world. I mean, a bloodhound's crazy high, but then a deer is like 5 or 10 times higher. It's just
yeah.
unreal how well they smell. They're going to smell you.
Yeah. I mean, at
But
this
up,
point, even it's like I pump gas in my hunting clothes. Like if I, you know what I
yep,
mean? Like
I
I'll
do.
be, I'll be out somewhere hunting the plains where I'm driving and doing a lot of glass, and it's like, and have to stop and get gas. It's like, I'm not changing my shoes. I'm not changing my clothes to pump gas. Like I'm just going to get on, pump
Right.
the gas. And so it's like, you know, to your point, it's like, I'm going to just play the wind, right? If they're going to win me, they're going to win me regardless of,
Yep.
you know, so.
I remember one trip I went on, 9 days. I didn't take a bath. 9
Mhm.
days. I mean,
Yeah,
that's a
dude, when
while.
when you're elk hunting and you're in the mountains, man, when I go out and I do that and I'm gone for like 10, 12, 14 days and you're in a tent,
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, you ain't showering. You know, it's like maybe
I
if there's
I
a
I
river
done the
close by, you can dunk, but that's about
yeah.
it.
It just kind of rearranges it.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Rearranges the
it.
steam.
Yeah,
I used to do the whole tote thing with, everything sprayed down and bags and scent wafers and all that kind of stuff and sprayed down before every hunt. And I was like, you know what? I didn't honestly see my success increase at
well,
all.
that and it made me
And it took away
miserable.
the
Like I
fun.
was, yes, I was just gonna say, like it would make me think about that stuff so much more than the actual
Right.
like strategy of the hunt and what I
Overthinking.
needed to do. Right when
Yep.
I got rid of a bunch of that stuff and I just started going like, you know what, I'm just gonna go hunt. Way more fun, way more
It
opportunities.
is. I logically think things through. I try to approach stand, downwind, and I try to never backtrack. If I go past I've done the run and gun thing since I started early 2000, since the early
Mm-hmm.
2000s, basically, when I bought that first API climber stand. That's a lot of times I will hunt a different tree every hunt for a 2 week trip. I mean, I have run and gun for years, and it's real popular now. Everybody's
Mm-hmm.
using saddles and
Mm-hmm.
the LCWGs and all the lightweight stands and everything. I'm still lugging those. I've got some lone wolf stands, but still lug that API 20 some pound thing around with my pack. I probably carry 40 pounds, all my junk. I got to have something to
Right.
drink and eat.
Yeah.
I go in, and if I go past a good spot, I'm like, I screwed up. I got to find another one because I won't hardly backtrack because I've had them come in and smell pass and then back up. And then they'll come in and they busted just right where you step. It's just
Mm-hmm.
crazy how easily they can smell you. Touch one. I try to keep my hand with a bow that's not carrying the hand. My bow, I'll keep that hand in the pocket. That way I don't touch anything because
Mm-hmm.
your hands are oily. I mean, they lose so much scent. Yes, but
Yeah. It's that, you know, you can be meticulous about things as long as they're the right things, right? Like, you know, and it's not backtracking, paying attention to your access, paying attention to your wind, being super, I'll just say, being super anal about those types of things will actually benefit you. Where being super anal about having your clothes in a tote and whatever, like, I just, it's not, that's not where the percentage increase is going to happen in your
no,
efforts. You know what I mean?
I think a lot of people that gives them confidence though to know
Sure.
that they've
And
done
confidence
that.
is key,
It's a
right? It's like,
confidence builder for sure,
yeah,
in
yeah,
my opinion.
for sure.
I
The,
mean, uh, also a lot of times I mean, I'm the type of guy I will go half a mile out of my way to circle around. It could be short, just nice cut right off here and go right over to where I want to hunt. And it maybe screw me up a little with the way the wind's going. But if I cut all the way around and I hit this and go along the edge of that, then nothing in there is going to have a clue I'm there. Well, I want to do that.
right.
That's where I'm pretty meticulous. And the problem with that is on public land, I don't know how many times I've left 45 minutes earlier than I normally would have left, which I usually leave at least an hour, hour and a half before daylight. So I'm leaving sometimes 2 hours before daylight. Get there, get set up, and then here comes the light bobbing in straight in the way I could have went. It's like, man, here I done all that, and here comes Jim Bob, and he's
Right.
okay.
Yeah. It walks by. You're
But
like, Howdy. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? You give them
Oh,
a
I didn't see a truck parked over there. Well, I don't know how you didn't.
right.
I don't care. There's plenty, plenty of
Yeah,
land.
that's right. The so going back to talking about like the type of terrain and stuff that you're hunting. So it sounds like it's like if you're going a little further north towards central, is it getting more flat then, or are you still in
A
like the
lot of it,
hilly?
yeah.
Yeah,
One of
a little
my
bit, a little bit more ag in that area.
there's a lot more ag, yeah, and that's obviously keeps the numbers of deer higher. I
Mm-hmm.
don't, I personally don't like hunting right on ag fields. A lot of people do. I can't hardly stand to hunt a field. Even with a gun, I didn't used to like to hunt a field. I like hunting timber, and a lot of times I will base my evening hunts. If I Sometimes I'm going in completely blind. Sometimes I've never even scouted the area. I'll try to look at a map and I'll base where I think they're going to be bedded, and I will try to get about a half a mile from the food because on high pressure land, a mile's nothing for a deer. I mean,
Yeah,
on
yeah.
unpressured land, yeah, they might bed 80, 100 yards in from that ag field, and that's just where they bed because it's easy. But
Mm-hmm.
pressured land, they might be going 2 miles. I mean, I'll try to set. I like hardwood timber, hills and hardwoods. I'll kind of bypass the crop fields and all that, and some of it's flat, some of it's hills. Uh, I love weedy fields. I mean,
Mm. Like
that high
CRP
pressure
kind of.
land, they get out in the weedy fields, and what are you going to do? I mean, you can't. They're just safe. That's like a sanctuary inside a high pressured area that if they don't come close enough where somebody can shoot one, then I mean, when the weeds are head high and there's just little trails cut through them, you can't hardly hunt that, and they can just stay out there for all day. There was one time or a few times I've just kind of done oh, I forget what I even call them now. Just kind of set up and on the edge of one and just kind of glass instead of even worry about hunting. Yeah, I might have the bow hanging there, but just kind of observation hunt, I guess, what I used to
Mm-hmm.
call it all the time, and just kind of watch those weedy fields and see what stood up out there an hour before dark. And there's a lot of good deer use those weedy fields. The problem with hunting them, another problem is you hit one, and if you don't see it go down, it's hard to find blood in the weedy fields, and that's where I guess a thermal drone or a dog would come in handy. But
Yeah, the one that was my biggest concern when I hunt areas that are like real heavy in CRP because I shot
uh,
that one on the edge of CRP and he ran into it. I mean, I found him, but it was the same thing where finding blood was hard, at first. Now, the way it ended up playing out was he uh he went into like this CRP patch like 5 foot off the edge of like what was like this. I guess I think it was like a winter wheat field and laid down to die, and it was starting to lose light, and I just wanted to find at least like where he went into the CRP. I was like, I need to just find at least where the entry point is. That way, if I need to get a dog or whatever, if I need to back out till tomorrow, at least have a starting point. And he was laying right there and jumped up and like scared the living daylights out of me. And
yeah,
I ended up having to put like another arrow in him, and then he dropped, and I,
oh, that's
obviously
good.
found him. But it
Yeah.
was but like finding the blood in that area was just extremely hard, you
Oh,
know.
it is tough.
And that was my biggest concern. I was like, he gets down in that CRP. I was like, I'll never find him. I was like, it's just a complete quagmire, you know.
Hmm.
Um,
They love the CRP. I was referring to it as weedy fields, but CRP is a little different,
yeah,
more of a grassy. But
yeah,
yeah, it's same. They love
yeah,
that cover like that.
yeah. So you were talking about, getting off, off the food and, trying to kind of be, I don't know if it was adjacent to like the bedding or like, kind of in between or whatever the case is. Like, would you consider yourself more, a bed hunter? Do you hunt more transitions? Like, what's your approach in general? If like you're going into a season, like in your, you're scouting, you're kind of putting your plan together for a year or whatever, what is your kind of primary kind of, I guess, go to in your bag of tricks, if you will?
Bedding. I mainly focus on bedding areas. What I
Yeah.
feel like's a bedding area. Some places it's really hard to tell. The bucks don't have a schedule like we do, or does for that matter either. They've got fawns to take care of and feed at certain times a buck. It doesn't matter. He doesn't have to be at work. He doesn't have to be at dinner. He doesn't have to be anything. He's just got to worry about finding somewhere to stay alive. And he can literally lay down anywhere. Now, I'm sure some of them have,
Consistency.
favored
Yeah.
bedding areas that they're going to return to consistently, but I don't necessarily focus on that. I've never really tried to per se hunt a single deer.
Hmm.
I just try to focus on what I feel like bedding areas that I've learned are bedding areas from all the scouting and feet on the ground that I've done over the years.
Hmm.
Uh, New areas, I'll look at a map, obviously, an aerial photo, which is a huge, huge plus compared to the old paper maps because you can actually see what's there as far as timber and all
Right.
that. And I'll try to just pick, thicker, denser looking timber and then more open timber and just try to get in with the wind towards the edge of that thicker stuff and just basically hope something comes out or maybe skirt it with the wind in my favor till I find where I feel like the deer are coming out because of rub lines or a trail or tracks or some scrapes or just something that gives it away. But I just like that bedding. I mean,
Right.
just really do.
What
The
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say the food thing is it's just I don't know. It just seems like a lot of people really hunt it. I mean, I used to really focus on food because obviously they got to have it, and yeah, it attracts a ton of deer. But they they get pressured so easy.
Hmm. Yeah.
Obviously they feel safe in their bedding.
Yeah.
So it's I've noticed some of my better bucks I've killed most of my best bucks in the evening, and I honestly feel like most of them have just got a. I mean, within like a couple hundred yards of me, and because you can just kind of tell the way their body language, the way they're moving. They're not in that steady walk yet. They're kind of just moving slow and they haven't really
They're
kind of
not
like me going
on
for my
alert
cup of
yet.
coffee in the morning.
Right. Right. Yeah.
You
They're
know,
just kind of not just waking up, but they're just kind of relaxed, I guess would be a way to
right?
say it.
Be more
Right.
comfortable.
Yeah. When you're like
It's,
when you're out doing your boots on the ground stuff, or even if you're in a place you've not been before and you're just kind of, jumping into a place, that's kind of new to you and you're just going to go in and kind of let it rip. Like what are you looking for to kind of dial in a hunt, if you will?
um, but well, from the map, like I said, I'll kind of see where the crops are, like a destination point, let's say, or
Hmm.
a CRP field that I think they might be going to. Although a lot of times the CRP fields, they're bedded in them and they'll come out of the CRP into the timber.
Right.
It's hard to tell, but if I'm going to hunt in the timber, I'll try to hunt in between some what I feel like is the thicker bedding, a CRP field or a crop field, and closer to the bedding. But then once I get in the timber, I like to hunt an edge. It's in the timber from where it goes, like the thicker timber to more open timber, or a cedar thicket to more open timber. For some reason, it seems like I've noticed deer like to just run those edges a lot. And of course, if you can find where they're coming in and out of that, crossing from one different type of habitat in the big timber to another different habitat in the big timber and get in between that, they're just kind of like little hidden spots that a lot of people I think overlook. A lot of guys, when they hunt big timber, they'll hunt wide open stuff where they can see as far as they can see. I don't know how many deer I've killed with a bow. Well over 100. I mean, it's probably 130 to 140, just guessing, but I'll bet 80% of them are less than 20 yards.
Hmm. Yep.
Because I set myself up like that in the thicker. I swear they just like you were saying earlier. They're just more comfortable. They're just more relaxed, and it's just those type of deer you can get drawn on and just
Hmm.
I don't know. I can get drawn
Right.
on them and just everything works out easier.
What's
And I've never liked long shots either. I'm not that
Yeah.
good of a shot.
Yeah.
I killed one at 53 yards once, and that's as far as I've shot one.
Right.
But
The what had a different question. There's two that I wanted to ask you. Like, so I'll ask you this one. So, do you are you a morning guy or an evening hunt guy? What's your preference?
I get more excited to go out in the morning. I think I see a lot more deer as far as number wise in the morning, and I have seen some awesome and some giant bucks in the morning. But I think I counted up out of my like 8 or 9 best bucks, like 7 or so of them came from an evening, and that's I think because I focus on the bedding. I mean,
Yeah,
I
it's hard
get
to beat those guys
close to
back to
where they're
bed.
going to get up and start come out for the night.
Yeah, yeah. I remember what I wanted to ask you when you were. I'm always curious to ask people this. Like, if you could dial in your ideal stand setup, right? you have the ideal tree, the ideal wind. Like, what would that look like for you? I'm always
Oh
curious
man.
how people like to set up, right? It's like, because the funny thing is it kind of catches everybody off guard if you ask them, because no one's ever dealing with the ideal setup, right? There's always
No.
something that's kind of wrong, right? That you're just kind of
Oh
dealing with
yeah.
to a degree, right? But like,
Right.
what is your ideal setup? So it sounds like it's probably an evening setup would be my guess, right? Because
Yeah.
that's whenever it seems like you have your best kind of success, if you will.
That is a tough one, man. I I don't know. I walk through the timber until somehow I can just feel what's going to be a good spot. And it's just really hard to explain that. I don't.
Okay, let me ask it this way then. Um, the best buck you've killed, what was that setup?
Best buck I've killed was
Or maybe
morning.
the hardest one you've killed. Maybe because it doesn't
Oh, the
necessarily have to be
hardest
your
one.
best.
The one I worked the hardest for was probably the first one. I went up for a 2 week trip and I'd seen him the night I went up. I drove around, I seen the buck, and there was 17 trucks parked along this one road. It was a mile and a quarter long road, 17 trucks. He was standing literally 20 yards off the road broadside, and he was standing there with a north wind, and all the guys were in the timber, which was north of where he was at. And he was just, it was like 15 minutes before dark, and he was just like standing there waiting for the guys to come out of the timber. And this is the only buck I ever seen multiple times before I killed him. And I didn't see that buck again. And of course, after I seen him, I want to try to kill that buck. And I tried and tried, never seen him again. A Wednesday morning, he chased a doe by me, probably a quarter mile from where I was, went into a thicket. I was like, I know where he's at tonight because they bed in there a lot, and I've killed several decent bucks and a lot of deer around that thicket. And I just got out of there, went back to camp. I was just happy as could be, talked to a guy I knew real well. Yeah, so and so come up. He'd shot at a deer and we was trailing it. And he said, we went in this thicket over here at this one spot. And he's like, we jumped this buck out, went running across the field with a doe. I said, oh man, that was a buck. So I didn't even go in there that night. And then that was Wednesday night. Friday night, I'd ended up going where he came from. And I went in and I hunted, and it's basically a long ridge and private's kind of west or east of it, about a quarter mile, and there was a huge rub line right in there. And I would say it was the buck I killed. I went in and set up on that rub line, and here he come. He just come off of that ridge. I don't know if he was moving pretty fast, so I don't know if he was just cruising or what, but it was just kind of a draw that went up to the end of the draw that got up on more of a flat below the top of the ridge, and he come right along the edge of that, just skirting down through there. Smoked him, and he went about 40 yards, and that was it. But I can't say it's a proven spot. I mean, I've
Mm-hmm.
hunted it several times. That's the problem with it, is a lot of these spots I've hunted so much, I just kind of know where the deer travel. So
Right.
it's hard to pinpoint why. It's just I've hunted it so much, I've seen so many deer there, I can't turn it down anymore.
Right.
It's my desperation spots, I guess you could say. A lot of times I'll hunt them first, but then I'll end up hunting them later. A few times I'll move around in between. But
I mean, earlier, I mean, you've killed a lot of deer, right? I'm always curious with guys that have been doing it a long time that have filled a lot of tags. Like, what do you think if you had to just think about it? Because I don't think we think about ourselves this way very often. I think we see other people, and not from a jealousy standpoint, but we see other people. They're, like I've got buddies like this, whether it's hunting or anything else. You see them and they're really good or they're really successful. You're always kind of like, man, I wonder what it is that guy does. That makes him so successful. I wonder if I can adopt some of what he's doing or whatever and learn from him or whatever the case is. And so I'm curious for you, like if you had to think about, all the years you've been doing this, do you think, what is it to you that you think is the reason why you've had the amount of success that you've had?
I think it boils down. No, not everybody can do that. It boils down to time in the seat, time in the stand. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's a huge factor. Um, but then there are a lot of other things, obviously
Mm-hmm.
scouting and thinking things through. And on public land, I hunt people.
Mm.
You know, you got 8 guys keep going in there, just like the buck I told you. Well, I didn't hunt him in the patch of timber where I seen him. I knew where the patch of timber he'd come out of. There was a huge CRP field in between that patch and the patch I killed him in. Well, I sit there and I thought, with the north wind, he likely crossed right over this, and then he was going to go in that patch of timber, and then he smelled all those guys in there. Because, like I said, there was 17 trucks parked down that road
Mm-hmm.
on a 1.25 mile long road. So there was a ton of people in that patch of timber, and that patch of timber is not 400 acres.
Mm-hmm.
So he knew they were in there.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's one of the things people have a hard time with is they always, and look, I've been guilty of this too. I think as you maybe go a little longer, it becomes maybe a little bit easier. But you want to hunt where you've seen the deer,
Right.
where not where the deer is going to be next. And that
Yeah.
was a
Exactly.
big learning. I chased a really good deer this past year. He was good deer by any state's like criteria. Um, and I knew him for a couple years, and this was the first year that I was really kind of hunting. And I sold out the whole season, where I think I hunted him like almost like 30 days straight or something like that. It was a marathon. I was living away from the family. I was living in my little trailer, and I was living in my truck, like chasing this thing. And that was the biggest thing that I was always just like one step behind him, and it was the first time I've chased like a truly, really, really mature deer for a full season. The deer was like 6.5 or 7.5, right?
Man, yeah.
Based on just like when I found him, how old he was when I found him, like initially. Um, and, uh, and it just always felt like I was a step behind him all the time.
Hmm.
Right. And it wasn't until like I kind of started abandoning the places where I knew he had been before and started kind of going to the places where I thought he was going to be was when I
Yeah.
started feeling like I was closing the gap. And I did
Right.
eventually see him. I saw him on like October 12th, had an encounter with him. But that was, sometimes buddies or whatever will ask like what that deer taught me. And I'm like, it taught me to not to use the intel that I have about the deer to like better understand his, and this could go for just deer in general, right? It doesn't have to be a singular deer, but understanding their behaviors and their intent more so than like their patterns. I was like, because their patterns can change really easy if a coyote runs through or there's hunters in there or whatever the case is. I was like, but their how they think or how their personality is or whatever. I was like, that doesn't really change. I was
Mhm.
like, when you start to see that kind of come through, I was like, then you can start to predict where they're going to be, right? And that was
Right.
the big thing for me was trying to figure out how to hunt. But I think that, I mean, I wanted to ask like your opinion, like that's one of the hardest things to do, I think, for people is to hunt where the deer hasn't been yet or they haven't seen the deer at yet and just and know that deer is going to be there.
I think a lot of people, it doesn't make sense. You need to figure, where is he coming from? Where is he going? What all's in between? If you got pictures of him here, pictures of him here, well, look at that in between. There might be a nice pinch point or just something in there where he's coming down through almost every time for some reason. There might be a little water hole on a creek right there. He wants to come down. I've walked a mile from over here to here. Now I want to get a drink. And I mean, maybe he wants to come right through there almost every time. Obviously, he's probably going to play the wind when he does. But another thing, I'm like you said, a lot of people hunt where they've seen the deer, which I mean, that's just seems like common sense. I mean, that's pretty obvious to want to do that. But a lot of times, you'll see this on public land a lot. Somebody will kill a good buck, and that night or the next morning, there will be 5 trucks parked where they were at, whereas there might not have been anybody before.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like even the deer that it's gone, and people
Right.
still go flock to that spot. It's not like they're on a shelf in there and you just go pick one out. I
Right.
mean,
Yeah.
that deer is gone now. There might be a reason why he's frequenting that spot or whatever, and there might be multiple bucks coming in there, obviously. But
Mm-hmm.
I just don't like doing that. And then you were talking about deer having certain habits or whatever. The buck I was telling you about earlier that I'd seen, and then I'd hunted for 2 weeks. I killed him the Friday night. It was the second Friday night of rifle season with my bow, and um, I'd seen that buck 3 times. It was the third time I'd encountered him. I think it was my 27th or 28th hunt. And I got to thinking the exact way he walked 4, 5, 6 years before that, I'd hunted kind of on the opposite side of where he was, like about 100 yards east of where I was at when I shot him. And I don't know how many hunts I had. I had a doe with 2 fawns, and she come through exactly the same way. And she was just weave through this. There's like this thicker strip of trees right there in the timber, and she always just weaved right through all those trees, and her fawns right behind her. And that's exactly what he was doing. And I sit there and I don't know how many times I thought maybe he was one of her fawns. And
Mm.
she kind of had taught him that.
Mm-hmm.
And he just kind of kept that through his life.
Right.
But
Hmm.
I mean, maybe I'm just dreaming, but
I mean, I think there's
kind
something
of
to it, right? Like it's I mean, it's either they learned it from somewhere, right? Or there's just something about the way that that area lays out that forces them to do that thing, you know, whether it's like how the wind current's moving through there on a specific wind, right? To where it's like, that's how they get the best kind of can pull the most scent from the wind or, you know, who knows what, you know, it's,
some of it's
I,
easiest walking too. I think
yeah.
I learned a lot about deer hunting from coon hunting. And you sit there and think, well, how, but when you're coon hunting and say you turn the dogs out, they go tree, and you go to where they're treed, well, you're not going to fight your way through the roughest and the steepest and whatever. You're going to take what feels like the easiest route angling towards the dogs, however it is. And I noticed coon hunting, just headlight on in the middle of the night, way out in the middle of the woods, you're always finding a ton of deer sign. And it's like the deer are using the same easy type terrain. And it's not because it was good deer hunting. It just happened to be the deer were using the same terrain. We were, that dog treed up on that ridge, and we just wind around the easiest way to get to them. And it seems like the deer were using that too. And then you go back in the daylight sometime and check it out, and it's like, man, there's a lot more rubs and stuff here, and just whatever. It's just
Yeah.
so sometimes I think the best scouting is just go in and walk what feels comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe even when you're getting ready to set up, walk what feels comfortable. And if it just kind of flows with the way the timber and the terrain go, I mean, it's just kind of a natural funnel based basically just off of terrain, not necessarily a field or a thicket or anything like that, just the land terrain, the topo of the land, funnel them to you naturally. I mean, you can look at a topo map, and it's pretty explanatory,
Right.
showing that. But without a topo map, you can kind of just see that.
Right. What, I'm curious that, you know, we talked a little bit about, you know, that you killed that deer in the evening, but you like mornings because you're excited about mornings. I'm very similar to that. I
Mm-hmm.
love mornings are one of my favorite times to hunt. I don't know why. I see a lot of deer and I have a lot of really good encounters in those sets. But similar to you, it's like I think I've probably had most of my success in evenings in general.
Oh, anything in November. I mean,
Okay.
and then
All right.
anything after November 1st. I won't hardly. I used to start September 15th. It opens here, in Missouri, and I used to start September 15th. And I mean, I would be out there every hunt I could possibly be, and it's miserable hunting. It's not fun. I mean, you see
Mm-hmm.
some deer and killed some decent deer, nothing real big early,
Mm-hmm.
but I like it when you get up and it's some nice cold mornings and you don't have to worry about seed ticks and mosquitoes and gnats
Mm-hmm.
buzzing around you all the time, and you can just actually go enjoy the hunt.
Yeah.
Um,
You're getting me
I
fired
do
up.
like,
I'm just thinking about those
yeah.
crisp mornings. I'm already getting excited.
Oh man, I'm ready for some. I know that.
That's right.
I like the mornings because there seems like there's so much more action. It's like the bucks have found does through the night or something. They're chasing them around more, and then the
Mm-hmm.
does they're taking the fawn somewhere. You just seems like you see to bed or whatever. You just seems like you see a lot more deer in the evenings. It's always been slower for me. I have had some crazy evenings where a lot's happened, obviously, but it's just unless you're hunting maybe right on a food plot and they're coming out in it or something. But in the timber, like I hunt, the evenings are just definitely always slower.
Right.
But
Yeah.
if you're hunting deep in the timber, the mornings are way better
Yeah.
as
I
far as
like,
numbers.
the, I started, no, I love November too. I love that last week of October as well. But I think my favorite time is because you were talking about like people hunting people, right? And
Uh-huh.
I live in an area that's pretty densely populated just in general. And there's not a lot of big public around necessarily. There's like a lot of small pieces. And so you're always kind of contending with people in general. And what I started doing was hunting mornings because most people don't want to get up early, right? Especially like
Yeah,
in
yeah.
October. And I started hunting more kind of middle of like the lull. Like everyone's excited for the season to hit. So as soon as the season hits, man, people are out, right? It's like I'm fired up, right? And then the quote unquote October lull happens, right?
Hmm.
That people think deer stop moving, and so people don't hunt it as often. So I started hunting, taking mornings off in the middle of the week on like a Wednesday and a Thursday and hunt the morning because that's the time when there are fewer people out. And that was when I see it's when I see the most deer around me is that
Absolutely.
time,
Yep.
So taking the advice that you were saying earlier, which is like, I paid attention when I first moved into the area where I was like, man, I was like, and when I'm hunting the weekends and I'm hunting evenings and stuff like that, I was like, there's just so many more people around. I was like, I'm gonna just switch it up and do the opposite. And that was whenever everything kind of started changing.
Most of my deer, I mean, I've killed a lot of deer on the weekends. A lot of my deer have came from Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I mean, they
Mm-hmm.
just have. And like I said, the mornings then, and there's just not that many people out in the mornings. You got the guys that come out in the evenings because they run out after work real quick,
Mm-hmm.
and run in. So in the morning, a lot of times you can get in and have pretty good hunts in the morning. I mean, they say to hunt high in the morning, and I typically do, but sometimes early, if you got hot weather, that it's cooler down in them hollers and low spots, in the morning. And I think the deer move down in there. You just kind of got to watch your thermals and your scent a little bit, maybe get up on the side a little bit. It's like they want to run them draws sometimes when it's warmer in the morning. When it's cold, November and later, it really don't matter.
Right.
But
How was your season last year? How did things shake out for you?
last year was kind of a weird season. I mean, I filled my tags, but I just had major shoulder surgery last February 29th, and
Oh, geez.
I'd had two muscles detached for over 4 years, and then I detached another one, and I'd torn my bicep really bad, and the tendon was frayed.
Man, you did a
And
number
I
on
mean,
that thing.
oh man, it was bad. I mean, I'd had shoulder trouble for 10 or 12 years, but I just wouldn't give up the compound.
Mm-hmm.
And they went in and put screws. They cut four muscles loose and ground the bone till it bled and reattached them all and put screws in and sewed it all up. And ground out a bunch of bone spurs. I was in a sling for 6 weeks, couldn't move my arm except to take a shower, and I could just let it hang and then put it back in the sling. And I literally, when I come out of that sling, I could a folded up bath towel was the first exercise they had me doing physical therapy, and I was shaking trying to slide it up a wall. Is how much strength I
Jeez.
had. So, and
Yeah.
that was I had surgery 29th, so 6 weeks later, middle of April or so. Well, I didn't know if I'd even be able to hunt. I mean, my arm was just scrawny little thing, couldn't do anything. And I finally, about into August, I got brave enough to draw my bow when they fully released me. And I bet I didn't shoot 10 shots practicing. And I waited until, it was probably the 1st of November before I hunted. And ended up, can't even remember. I screwed up so much. My shoulder and arm is kind of in a different position now because they had to shorten the muscles and everything. It's weird.
Mm-hmm.
And so my anchor point was messed up. I had so much trouble this year. It just, I couldn't hit anything. And it was just, I ended up killing probably a 128. And then I think I killed a 127, a 9 or a 10. I really can't even
Mm-hmm.
remember, to be honest. But it,
Nice.
it was a rough season. I've
How
seen
you?
a lot of deer. I've probably
How
seen
you,
as many bucks as I've
really?
seen. Oh yeah, it was just like
Wow.
slapping me in the face.
Right.
I mean, yeah, I just, yeah, couldn't. I shot at two or three good bucks. I hit one really good 10. Couldn't find him. He was probably 150.
Yeah.
Not huge, but a really nice buck. And
Right.
just hit him too far forward.
How
I really
how's your
thought I would
how's your
find
shoulder
it.
feeling now?
Oh, it's great. It's
Good.
best. Yes, absolutely. This year will be a lot better, I think.
Nice.
I've got my probably 90% of my strength back, my muscles all back, and my range of motion's probably 90 to 100%. I mean,
Nice.
it's really nice.
Yeah.
Wish I'd
See.
done it years ago
Right.
when I
Yeah.
first started having problems.
Yeah. Yeah. I had
In
shoulder
fact,
issues a couple years ago, and I don't wish that on anybody, man. It's terrible.
it is. In fact, I shot right-handed for shoot 20 some years, probably 20 over 20 years, I know. And I got a cataract. I have a cataract on my right eye, and then the shoulder was bothering me real bad. And I like, you know what? I'm gonna go to a left-handed bow. So I switched to a left-handed bow 6 or 7 years ago, 2018, I think. And in about 20 shots, I was shooting better than I was shooting with a right-handed bow.
Jeez.
And I mean, honestly, I had target panic at the same time. I was suffering from that terrible, and it cured that. I mean, the target
Yeah.
panic just went away.
Wow.
I guess it just changed it up enough. I don't know. I can't explain that other than it just changed it up enough. But
Right.
going to that left-handed helped a ton.
Right. My buddy had a wrist surgery last year, and he got out of, like, he actually had two surgeries because the first surgery didn't take, so he had to have another one late. And so he was initially supposed to be able to like shoot and stuff like that before the season came in and things like that. Um, and then the second surgery, because the first one didn't take, happened so late in the year that he couldn't. And it was on his drawing. No, I forget. It might have been on his riser hand, if I'm not mistaken. So he couldn't. He got to a point to where it's like he healed enough to where he could start to kind of use it again to a degree, but he couldn't.
Uh-huh.
No, it was actually, I think, his release hand, if I'm not mistaken. Nah, maybe not. No, it wasn't. He ended up. The moral of the story is he ended up going to a mouth tab last year and taught himself
Oh,
how to
really?
shoot with a mouth tab. Yeah,
Holy cow, that'd be tough.
yeah. I was
I
like,
could
dude, I don't
imagine
know if I.
that.
Could. Yeah, that's what I told him. I was like, I don't know that I could do that. I mean, he's like, my jaw hurts all the time. He's like, I cracked teeth. I ended up having to have like two root canals because of it.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah,
I don't
it
think
was.
my neck could take it.
Yeah,
My
I think
neck,
he
I
was
have a lot.
pulling like 35 pounds with it or something like that, or 37 pounds with it or
Okay,
something.
okay, that's quite a bit. That makes more sense. I was thinking, surely people don't pull 60, 70
70.
pounds.
I know,
That's
right?
why I've never even looked or read about it or anything, so I had
Yeah,
no clue.
he's like 150 pounds, but he's
Huh.
80 pounds of neck.
Yeah, you'd have to be, man. That'd be tough.
Yeah.
Really would.
Yeah. He killed some deer with it though last year, man. Like he was on a tear. It was one of those things where, and he honestly said it was probably one of those his favorite seasons because he had no real expectations, of
Uh-huh.
what was gonna, if he was gonna be able to kill anything, if he was even gonna, and so
Well,
he was just having
right.
fun.
That's kind of last year I went into it with that, but then when things I started getting chances and things were going wrong, and I was like, man, this is just like a slap in the face. And then
Mm-hmm.
I come back to camp one day, I couldn't figure out. I'd missed like two bucks that morning. I couldn't figure out what was going on. Well, I shoot a peep and a kisser button. Well, I noticed when I was anchoring, it was just terrible, felt terrible. I looked at my bow and looked at my bow, couldn't figure it out. Got back to camp and I shot and I was shooting like 6 inches off. And what in the world's going on? And that was at camp at 20 yards, not out, hunting. That was
Mm-hmm.
in the best conditions. And I was like, what is going on? And my kisser button had slid almost all the way down to where it was right above my D loop because one of the knock sets on top had broke. And so I got that fixed, and then I was in a lot better shape then. And that's whenever I ended up killing deer.
Right.
But it just, of course, I didn't realize that because my shoulder, I don't know, my shoulder, nothing felt right after that surgery. Just nothing felt right. My anchor always felt off. And of course, my arm was weak. And just, like I said, my shoulders in a little, if I work my shirt off and I look in the mirror, my shoulders a little bit farther forward and a little
Mm-hmm.
bit like lower or higher. I can't remember now, but it's just weird compared to the other one. He
Yeah.
shortened the muscles up because he cut the tendons off, to make them shorter with his new,
Yeah.
like, new meat to attach.
Right.
But
The so but you're loaded for bear this year. You're back squared away. So what's your plan for the year?
well, this year I have a lot of vacation, so I would like to maybe go up a couple of days before season and kind of do some scouting.
Mm-hmm.
And which I don't hunt early season anymore much. I mean, hardly ever will I hunt early, but I'm thinking about it this year because last year I found some really good sheds, and I've got a couple of really nice bucks that I'd like to see. And part of some of the sheds I did find are on a place that closes mid-October. You can't hunt it
Mm-hmm.
after that, so it'd be really good to. And almost every year I miss that because I don't hunt early. So I really want to maybe try to get in there and get after one of these bucks because there's a couple of good ones in there that, I mean, last year I think the one he'd have been close to 180, and so I mean that puts him up this year hopefully high 180s to 190.
Yeah.
Go up, do that, and then uh, probably hit a few weekends through October. Supposed to be a grandpa end October, so
There you
that's going
go.
to kind of. Yeah, that's actually like the 4th of November is the due date, and I'm like, no, 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 no. We gotta have this kid earlier. We gotta do something here. I can't be having a birthday on November
Right.
4th every year, because
Right.
that's when I start my real hunting, the
Right.
first week of November,
Nice.
and I'll usually go up for about a 2 week trip, and then after that I'll go up all of Thanksgiving, 3 or 4 days, and then I'll pretty well hit every weekend at least
Right.
Thursday, Friday, Saturday for the rest of the year, and then we'll go hunt Oh, the week in between Christmas and New Year's, me and the wife will go up and hunt
Hmm.
for a week there. She's killed a couple good bucks that week.
Nice.
Um, I've killed my best one come from that week. And then I like them because yeah, you still have some younger does and stuff coming in estrus, so
Hmm.
the mature bucks are going after them, but a lot of the bucks are kind of it's Missouri's got it to where some of the conservation land has very few does, so I think their testosterone starts dropping off early, and the rut
Hmm.
is just kind of over a lot earlier. It seems like
Right.
anymore than it used to be, say 10 or 12 years ago. So some of them big mature bucks just kind of turn into a normal deer,
Hmm.
if that makes
Right.
sense, and they're kind of
Yeah.
looking for food. So then I will definitely really start thinking about where they're going to get something to eat because there's a lot less to eat. So they've got to
Hmm.
be kind of concentrating in certain areas to eat. And then I just kind of base my hunting off of that. I know I think 3 years ago, I put her on a pretty good buck. I'd went up the day before, and I think I spent 5.5 hours walking and scouting, and I mapped it on my phone, and I think I'd done like 13 miles, and I just almost grid searched this whole area, which it gets pressure, so I don't worry too much about leaving sin or any of that. I mean, there's other people hunting there a lot, but I found 3 or 4 different really good trails that had some good rubs, and all of them had buck tracks. I call them buck tracks. Some people argue and say you can't tell. Maybe you can't, but I think you can.
Hmm.
And all the trails had buck tracks, and they all went to the same little point. And there was this point there, and it kind of like overlooked a wheat field and a bean field that was about a quarter mile away. And from that point, and I thought, a buck could come stand right here, and it's just kind of a staging area, I guess. Stand
Hmm.
right here, and he could just watch out across this field for the last hour of daylight, the last 30 minutes, and see where other deer were coming from before he went out. And I put her there, and the first evening she hunted it, she killed it was a 9 point, and I think it was high 130. And it's
Nice.
her best buck.
Yeah. Nice.
But he come right right down one of them trails right to her. I mean, and it was, I don't know, end of December. So I mean, I can't say there was any rut behavior. He just walked in on her. I don't know
Right.
what was going on, but there were a lot of scrapes right there on that point. But they were all old. They'd been there a while.
Right.
I don't think any of them had been freshened up,
Yeah.
if I remember
I
right.
mean, that's a great example of just letting the woods tell you what's happening and
Yeah.
not overcomplicating it, right? Because I think a lot of times people make it way more complicated than it really needs to be. You know,
I like things simple.
yeah. I'm the same way. I'm like I get confused the more complicated I make things. You know,
Yeah. I'll
I
start
just confuse
overthinking
myself.
it.
I'll be honest. Yeah, same thing. It's like I prefer just to be like, hey, this is what I saw. This is what I think is happening. And I'm going to now go do what I think is the right thing to do based on that. And
Yeah.
this that simple.
I've got a couple of other buddies that they have a lot of success, and it's just like they're just eh, and it's just no pressure. I mean, it's just they don't overthink.
Mm-hmm.
The same. They do things a lot like I do. They don't use all the sin away stuff. They don't worry about making work out of it,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and they just go out and they try to hunt. I mean, they logically think things through, and they scout, and then they make a decision based off of that, and they go with it, and they have a lot of success. I mean, but I like I said, I like to keep things simple. I'm a simple guy. Some people make big deals out of things, get real
Yeah.
elaborate.
Yeah. It doesn't take all that.
No, no,
you know?
it don't. I mean, good equipment, that's a dang good benefit.
Right. Yeah.
I got some nice camo, but I'll admit I go to Walmart at the end of the season, I buy the camo on clearance for a fourth of what it normally costs, and that's what I use.
Right.
I buy nice boots.
Right. Yeah. Got to keep, that's the one thing. It's like, if anybody ever asks me, I'm always like, man, if you're going to spend money on something, like the one thing I would spend money on, is good boots, because nothing will kill a hunt faster than
Yep,
cold or wet or uncomfortable feet.
yep, yep. And I like
Especially
my
if you're a
boots.
guy who likes to do a lot of walking, right? If you're a
Yep,
person who's
and
going
I
to
do.
walk, yeah, if it's a guy who's, and nothing wrong with this approach to hunting, but if you're going to just walk out your back 40 and get into a box blind that's 100 yards away, then it doesn't matter, right? But if you're a guy who's going to pound the boot leather and be putting miles on and stuff like that, it's like that's probably your most important piece of gear, to be honest.
Yep. I remember one buck I killed was just public land, so you got like hundreds of options. You could park literally. This is a big area, and I mean you can drive miles around it, dozens and dozens of parking lots. And it was late October, and I thought, them bucks are really going to be starting to scrape good. And I was like, I'm gonna just walk until I find a fresh scrape that was made today. And I was like, I'm gonna hunt it tonight. I walked, I don't know how many miles that day. I was at two or three areas, walking with my stand. I got sweaty as could be, climber stand, backpack full. And I mean, I finally, when I set up, I found a scrape, and it was probably 4 foot in diameter. And I mean, that thing had been made that morning. You could tell it hadn't been a scrape there, but it was absolutely fresh, dirt scattered on all the leaves around it. And I mean, he'd peed in it, and it was still wet. And I mean, just, oh man, it was hot. I was like, this is a good spot. Climb a tree right there, and literally 30 minutes later, here comes a buck. Just He'd come off a private. I could see him way over there coming. He'd come out of this field, and he'd come and just hop the fence and come right over just straight to that scrape and started working it. And I shot him, and he ran about 40 yards. But I probably walked 8 or 10 miles,
Yeah.
scouting, because that's the sign I wanted to find. So I wanted to find something hot that was made that morning and hunt it that evening, and that's what I did.
What I loved about that description though was like the detail of the scrape, right? Because I think
Yeah.
a lot of times, people will misinterpret sign and how old it is or how recent it's been made or if it's huntable or whatever. And it's like the couple things you mentioned there is like if you really pay attention, right, you can see where that deer peed in that scrape, right? Like you can see like where the dirt looks different, right? Or that description of the dirt being scattered on top of the leaves, right? It's like that's like
Right.
super obvious. Yeah, it's like because if there's any wind or anything like that, it's like it's going to be gone, right? Pretty
Oh yeah, or
quickly,
dried up.
right? Or
You
dried
can tell
up.
by the color of the dirt.
Yeah.
It hadn't dried out yet. I've even stuck my finger in the pea spot of the scrape to
Yeah.
see if it's warm or not.
Yes.
I mean, and of course this wasn't, because I think he made it that morning. But
Right. Yeah.
I've done that, and I've had them be warm before. Like there was literally a deer had to have been there 30 minutes
Yeah.
before I was there.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
And
the good
I
stuff.
found scrape shed hunting. I had a community scrape here behind the house, and I found the deer were using that thing. They used it all year. I mean, you could go up there in
Mhm.
April, May, June. It didn't matter, and it was fresh.
Yeah. Those are some of my favorite, those scrapes, man. It's like I'll put a camera on those things and just like,
Yeah.
if it's getting used, like if I find a good scrape in the off season, or what I think to be a good scrape, it'll have a couple things going for it where it's like a couple things are converging. There might be a couple trails that are kind of connecting there. There'll be like doe bedding that'll be close by, or there'll be like like a oak flat that's nearby or something like that. Like a couple gem pieces that make that spot a place that deer want to kind of be and congregate. And if I get that hunch, it's like I just throw a camera on it and I'll do it in like March, February, like whenever I'm happen to be out. And then when I go back to check that camera, if I see that thing getting used in the off season, then I know I'm like, this is a spot where deer just want to be, right? Like they want to be here no matter what time of year it is. So let's watch it, see what happens, see when it turns on in October or whatever the case is, and kind of mark that on the calendar of like, if you watch it for a couple of years, at least this is kind of how I do it. It's like I'll watch it for a couple of years and I'll be able to kind of tell like, man, this 4-day window every year seems to be the window of like, not the
Yeah.
only time, but it's like, it's the best time. So if you're going to hunt this spot, it should be these 4 days. Right. So,
It, I mean, why screw it up by going in before or after? If you can pinpoint it down to close to that and just capitalize on that time frame, I would do it every time. I mean,
yeah.
that's one thing. It would be nice to have some real good private land where you could manage it, and I couldn't imagine the success you could have if
Yeah.
I've just never been able to do that. I mean,
Yeah.
people have, let's say, grandma and grandpa has 1,000 acres, and you and your uncle and your cousin hunt it, and you're the only ones that hunt it. Man, I mean that'd be awesome, because you don't have all 8 guys hunting it Wednesday or Thursday, while
Mhm.
you're at work, and and then you get to go hunt it Saturday. Keep that place fresh and just do it right. I would probably use more scent
Yeah.
control type stuff, and of course still play the wind and my approach and all that. Keep that all real strict, but
Yeah.
it,
That dialing in a spot like that, man, it's only, I probably only have 3 spots on public that I can kind of count on like that, but they're out of the way where no one else is gonna
yeah,
either it's such a pain to get to that like ain't
Right.
nobody going back there, right? Or the one is actually so stupid
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
like if you went to hunt it, you would think I'm a freaking idiot. Like why would
Well,
anybody ever hunt this? You know what I
right.
mean? But that's like
That's an overlooked spot. That's why I say I hunt people. That's one thing, man.
mhm.
You can do that. It was one year we went up for a week long. I was only going a week then. It was through rifle season to a place we hunt, and it was terrible. And in 7 days, I'd seen I think 5 deer in 7 days. You know, I mean, it was just it'd been so overhunted that had bad not CWD, but bad EHD, and a lot of deer died. You know, in the summer up there. But it was just terrible. And I was like, man, and there was an older guy telling me, he's like, and everybody, that's about the time everybody started going deep. Because I always went deep. You know, I'd be going a mile to a mile and a quarter to a mile and a half to hunt to get away from people. But it was like the year before and that year, it was like everybody had started going deep. And I was like, God damn it, you can't get away from people. It's just somebody's always screwing it up when you do get in something good. And I was talking to one of the older guys, and he's like, hunt stupid. That's exactly what he said, hunt stupid. And I was like,
Yes.
hunt stupid. And I was like, I don't know if I can do that. Nope.
That
He's
might be
like,
the
hunt stupid. I hunted stupid. I
yeah.
literally, I was 60 or 70 yards from the parking lot and probably 60 or 70 yards from the road. And I went in and I just climbed a random tree in what I thought would be a good travel corridor. And it is. You know, there's a couple ditches meet and the deer, they run the ditches and stuff, you know, up and down. And sat there and I was like, oh, here comes a deer. I hadn't been in the stand 15 minutes. Here comes a deer. Look, that's a buck. Oh, it's a pretty good buck. And every step, it's like he got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And here come this buck. And at the time, ended up being my best buck I'd ever killed. And I mean, he just like on a string straight to me. And I drew. He come around this hedge tree. And I was having to shoot down through the limbs. And which I shot right-handed. Then I'm going on my left now. But and I was kind of shooting down through the limbs. Hit a stinking limb. He was like 7 yards. Hit a limb. And he didn't even know what happened. He made 2 or 3 big hops and he stopped and was standing there just looking around left and right. And I yanked another arrow out of the quiver real quick and knocked it up. I was like, he's kind of a little bush right there. He was standing behind his vitals or covering his vitals. And like, just take a step, just take a step. Don't run, take a step. And he just flipped his tail and took 2 steps out behind that bush and I just smoked him. But I mean, I hunted stupid right off the road. And I hadn't seen 5 deer in 7 days, you know. And then I go in
Mhm.
there and kill almost 140-inch buck just hunting
Yep.
stupid.
Yep. Man,
But
it's that might actually be the title of this episode, Hunt Stupid. That might
I'm serious. There was another older guy I talked to at camp, and I asked him because I knew he hunted close to where I was going to go,
Mhm.
and I was like, "Where are you going to be hunting?" He said, "Oh, I'm going to hunt the pines." And I was like, "Okay, he's going to be over at this other spot because there's actually some pine trees there." And lo and behold, he wasn't hunting the pines; he was hunting some big cedars. He just called them pines, and I don't know why he did that. But anyway, he wasn't. He was 20 yards off the road, and on farther past me, the way the deer had came. Well, the deer, I noticed as it was coming, it would stop. It would walk about 8 or 10 yards and it would look up the hill towards those cedar trees. And it would walk 8 or 10 yards and look up the hill towards the cedar trees, 8 or 10 yards, and look back and look up. And then finally it got to where it quit looking once it got past where he was. That deer knew exactly where that guy was. I mean, it did. And the wind was in his favor. It's just that he had hunted that spot so many times because he's old. He's 70 something then
Right. Yeah.
and he didn't want to go far, so he would just go right in there off the road and hunt that spot. And that deer knew he was there, and it was just skirting him,
Mhm.
staying down the hill about 50 yards where he couldn't see it, and coming right up through there. So hunting stupid, and another hunter kind of steered the deer to me.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, the it's funny because a lot of times when they know you're around, people will think that a deer they left the county or they went so far away. A lot of times, man, it's like they still want
uh,
to have an interest in going where the place that they wanted to go, so they'll adapt ever so slightly to stay out of danger, but still kind of stay in the area. The idea that they kind of blow out and or leave the county or whatever the case is, like I think they're actually a lot closer than people think they are. I think they're just out of range most of the
using
time.
it a little different. When we used to rifle hunt a lot, we hunted on some flatter land north of where we live, and it was private. We had some permission to hunt some private. And those patches of timber, well, we'd make drives through those timber towards the end of the season if we didn't have deer, or try to get people a deer, whatever. And those deer, you jump them up and they take off running straight away. Well, they'll won't necessarily leave that patch. They'll go down and then they'll circle back.
Mm-hmm.
And so what you got to where I would do is I would let the other guys just keep on going. Well, they would come back through the gap that I had left because I stopped.
Yeah.
The other guys on the left and right, they would keep going. And those deer, and it's crazy how they can hide. They run a little ways and stop and they hunker down or whatever. They can hide and people will walk right on by them and here come the deer. They're just walking back to me like yard dogs, just kind of trotting. Well, we got past the hunters and then there I would be.
Right.
And I killed several deer doing that. Nothing big. Usually we get a doe or something, but a lot of deer done that. Now some big mature buck, yeah, he might blow out of the county, but he might do the same thing.
Right. Man, you've been at this thing a long time, right? And I'm always curious for guys that have been doing it a long time, who've had a lot of success. Like I'm looking at the deer on behind you, like you got some whoppers back there, And so I'm always curious for guys, like what is it that keeps you going, that keeps you interested, after all the years and many deer, and like what is that makes you still like get fired up about it?
Every experience is different. You never know what's going to happen. I mean, you could go out to the most boring morning or evening you've ever had, or you could just be out there. And I had one morning last year, I had 10 different bucks come by chasing does.
Jeez. Nice.
10 bucks.
That's a great morning, man. That's the morning. Those are the mornings you live for.
Yeah. I mean, and honestly, the time I spend, and I don't claim to be some great hunter. I mean, I just spend a lot of time in the woods, but I spend enough time that each year I'll have at least one morning like that. And it keeps me going, wondering when that one is going to be, because you never know. I mean, you can watch the moon, you can look at the weather. A lot of guys won't hunt if it's raining. A lot of guys won't hunt if it's too hot. A lot of guys won't hunt if it's too windy. There's just so many things. A lot of guys don't want to hunt. I'll hunt anything. I don't care. The older I've got, I kind of don't like hunting the rain too much. But I don't like heat, but I'll hunt it.
Right.
The deer don't have an air-conditioned house to go sit in.
Right. Yeah.
They might move less. But
right. Or they might move somewhere where it's cooler, right? Like you were talking about that and getting in the bottom, right? It's like,
yeah. And most people say, well, that's crazy. I don't hunt low in the morning. You hunt high in the morning when the thermals are lifting your scent up. Well, if you can get on the side and just still tuck an arrow down in that low spot, it can work.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily not going to work.
Yeah. I think that's what I like so much about it, is just that there's no absolutes,
No,
and so,
not, right.
There's no set it and forget it kind of approach. Yeah. And to me, that's the thing for me that kind of, keeps me, excited for every season that kind of rolls around, where
just never know what's going to happen.
Yeah. I'm like, what's going to happen today? It's like, who knows,
I love it. I mean, I've always had a fascination with antlers. So there's that. But then we eat our deer. A lot of people like to trophy hunt. I trophy hunt, but I also, my number one thing is fill the freezer. If I'll try to kill a doe or two as soon as I can, just to get some meat. Shoot, when Missouri had the 3 buck limit, you could kill 2 with archery, 2 with a gun. Bow hunt through gun season, so I could kill 3 bucks with a bow, every year. Right. And I've done that for probably 10 years. I've got probably 15 or 20 105 to 115 inch racks I'm looking at right now on a tree here in my living room. Come from that, because I'd hold out for a good buck. I'll kill a little buck too once in a while, a lot of people won't agree with that, but I do. Dude, we eat them.
You like to hunt, man. That's the thing. It's like
that's it.
People should just enjoy the hunt, whatever that is, right? It drives me crazy, when people get hung up on how other people do something,
Right.
It's, I like to hunt if I'm in a place that I know I can hunt a big deer, it's like, I like to try to hunt a big deer. You know what I mean? But if I'm in a place that doesn't, I got no problem shooting a good buck that walks by me. I always say, because people ask, I'll get asked like, hey, what are you hunting this year? Like Pennsylvania, for example, like Pennsylvania's got a lot better deer than people will think. I mean, it's not always been that way. Growing up, the deer weren't great necessarily. It's been,
oh man, yeah.
It's been more recently where, there's some areas you can get into, have some really good deer. They're just not as many of them as there are when you start to get into the Midwest, but it's definitely gotten significantly better, and so what I always say for PA, I'm like, and if I have a good one that I know of, sure, I'd like to hunt that deer, or 2 or 3 deer if I know of that are really good bucks or whatever. It's like, I'd surely like to hunt those. I was like, but some years, like this year's a great example. It's like, I don't really have one. There's one that I kind of know of. We'll see if he's around later, but I'm like, whatever gets, if a buck comes in and I get excited, he's probably going to get one, it's like, that's kind of my criteria, it's, I'm trying to have fun and trying to have a good time, trying to have a good experience, and that's for me, it's the experience. I shot the one deer, the last buck I killed, I guess it was 2 years ago, because I chased that big deer all last year, so it would have been the season before. There was a spot, he's a decent buck for the area, but it was a spot that I had kayaked and hunted a bunch of different times, and I was like, I want to kayak a buck out of here, So cool. That buck came in, worked the scrape, and gave me like a 10-yard, 9-yard shot, and I was like, he's going in the kayak. I was like, that's all there is to that.
Now's my chance. Might as well do it.
That's right.
There's a lot of bashing goes on what people kill. I'll poke fun at people for killing something, but hey, I'd probably shot it too, if everything was right with shooting it. That's the thing. It's
right.
Do what makes you happy. We're only here for so long.
That's it.
Who knows if we'll even be able to hunt in 10 or 20 years. You never know. Better enjoy it while you can.
That's right. Yeah. It's don't put off till tomorrow what you can do today, I guess.
Yeah.
is the quote.
I completely get the managing though. Go back to if we had 1,000 acres. You can't manage on 20 acres. Neighbors are going to shoot them all. Neighbors are going to shoot half of them if you got 1,000 acres. Likely, if they hunt very much, but you have a lot better chance. Public land, hey, if it makes you happy, shoot it, because the next guy's probably gonna. That's kind of bad to think, but hey, that's the way it is. I talked to a lot of out-of-staters that camp, and most of them have told me, I drove 800 miles here. I'm going to go home with something if I can.
Right.
So if you pass up that 105-inch buck, well, you didn't use your tag. So if you're happy with that, that's fine. But if that 105-inch buck walks by them, they're likely going to shoot it. So you passing it up doesn't guarantee it makes it till next year. You just didn't burn your tag.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Heck yeah, man. Well, hey buddy, I want to be sensitive to your time here. I appreciate you jumping on in the evening. Don't want to take up all your evening, but I appreciate you jumping on. I enjoy talking to you. I hope this was a good enough experience for you that you'd want to come back and talk to me again, because I really because this was
I'd do it again. I was nervous kind of at first, but it's pretty fun. I'm not the best at answering questions, and I'm not educated. I don't give real good descriptive answers, and sometimes I get a little off track, but
it's all right, buddy. It's like, I'm a come one, come all. Let's just talk. Let's just chop it up about deer hunting. But I appreciate you coming on. You're not on social media or anything, are you? No,
I'm not. What?
On social media or anything?
Facebook. Yeah, that's about it.
Yeah. If people want to find out what you're up to or any pictures you post or whatever, they just look up your name. Is that how they find you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
And I don't care. All my stuff's public. I don't care. I'm not hiding anything, I guess you'd say. I don't have any stalkers that I know of. So everything. People can see, pretty much everything. I do a lot of home projects, and I post a lot of my hunting stuff.
Nice.
Stuff like that.
Awesome. Well, buddy, I appreciate you coming on. Good luck this season, and let's make sure we stay in touch.
All right. Yeah, we'll do.
All right, folks, that is a wrap for today's show. I'd like to thank all of you for listening. And if you haven't yet, please head over to iTunes and leave us a 5-star rating. And be sure to subscribe to the podcast. And hell, while you're at it, head over to YouTube and give us a sub there, too. I'd be super appreciative if you do those couple things for me. And before I shut this thing down, I need to give a big shout out to our partners who continue to help us make this podcast possible. Tacticam, Osseo Gear, Hawk Optics, Face Off E-Bikes, and Lathrop & Sons Boot Company. And until next time, we'll see y'all.